Here we are at the studio. Walking over to the potter's wheels. We're all set for a little demonstration here. Get some clay, already pugged clay. Going to cut a portion of the clay off with a wire, cutting wire. Cover up the clay so it doesn't dry out. About 25 pounds, one block. Now we're going to knead the clay. It doesn't really have any air in it because it's already been pugged before, but just to get a nice uniform consistency, I'm going to knead it just a bit. And we're going to try to get it fairly close to the center of the wheel. And this is a kick wheel. It's a Paul Solmer's design. And you kick it with your right foot to spin, and then you apply water to serve as lubrication so that the clay doesn't stick to your hands. Now I'm making a depression in the center of the clay and going down just a bit. Put some more water in there and continue getting inside the clay. We want to try to keep the clay centered not only on the outside but also on the inside. Now we're pulling the clay up from the bottom, up through the wall to the top of the cylinder. It takes quite a little concentration. Okay, we have to be very, very careful not to let the clay essentially push us around. It's kind of mind over matter. So I'm reaching down at the bottom of the clay, selecting a portion of clay, and pulling it up slowly. You heard the old expression, everything done well is done slowly. I prefer to use the kick wheel over the electric wheel because it seems like I have more control as far as the speed is concerned. A lot of times people want to kick the accelerator like they would a car to go fast, and then you get this clay spinning so fast and it gets out of control. So I like to, kick the wheel, have it spin slowly, and have more control over it. I'm using a wooden rib on the outside to kind of smooth it out. I'm back to using a finger on the inside, a finger on the outside, and pull the wall up higher. I'm using the rib again to kind of not only to pull it up and make it smoother, but it's about 4 inches wide, and so I'm actually controlling that amount of clay as I'm bringing it up. Now we're necking the pot in. We're squeezing the clay and bringing it upward to the top, and as we do that, we're forcing the wall to go in. As you do that, sometimes you end up having an uneven area at the top, and here I'm just cutting that uneven area off with what's called a drape stick. It's a tool with like a needle point on it that you can insert into the clay. So this is called collaring it in or necking it in. We're kind of making a little flare, kind of a little flared lip at the top. This could end up being used as a vase of some sort with flowers in it. Now I'm trimming some clay off the bottom of the pot, and that's going to give me an opportunity to take a little clay away from the bottom. And here I'm just taking and smoothing and shaping the pot. A lot of concentration involved. It's good therapy. I might make a little score line just to put some decoration on it. Now we're putting some facets on the side of the pot. Even though it's kind of a symmetrical and rounded pot, this is kind of giving a little bit more individuality. Use that wire cutter to separate the clay from the wheel head. So we just run the wire underneath, and then we can pick up the pot and set it aside. Now we'll set this pot aside for a period of time, and then come back at a later date, perhaps the next day, and foot and trim the piece. Well, we're going to trim this pot with a narrow neck. I'm using a bowl that's already been fired to the stoneware temperature, and what I'm going to do is anchor it onto the wheel in the center, and then I'm going to put the top inside that pot and try to get it centered, as close as centered as possible. Then I'm going to anchor that onto the stoneware pot that's been centered. And now with what they call a loop tool, I'm going to carve off the excess clay from the bottom and around the side. Here we're cutting into the bottom of the pot, taking off a small amount of clay as possible, and we'll make consecutive pulls from the inside out and leave the outer edge the highest, and that will become the foot of the pot. Smoothing that off a little bit. Now I'm accentuating the foot. Taking a little more clay off the bottom. Kind of trimming it to make the bottom somewhat flat across. I'm putting my finger on the top to kind of smooth the foot. Now blowing into the pot, and this kind of forces the clay out from the pressure and gives it a more full body. Now we're scoring the edge of the pot, just some form of decoration or a line to kind of stop your visual movement towards the top. Putting a line at the bottom to do similar things. More of a visual thing. Now I'm accentuating those spaces that I made yesterday when the clay was wet. And I kind of put those facets on the side, and now I'm just kind of accentuating those facets. And there we have pretty much a finished pot, except we have to bisque fire it, and then glaze it and refire it. Okay, the pot that we pretty much finished is still has moisture in it, still kind of wet, but it can hold its own shape. And we call that leather hard. Once the pot has become totally dry, where the moisture is out of it, the relative humidity is out of the body, we call that greenware. And this is at the leather hard stage. Now it has to dry to get to the greenware stage. Once it's gotten to the greenware stage, then we can put it in a kiln and fire it to about 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it becomes bisqueware. It can never be made back into plastic clay anymore. It has changed its chemical composition. So from the leather hard stage to the green stage to the bisque stage, we have those two firings. Now this is a very porous pot, meaning that its pores are open. It's like a sponge sucking air. And if we submerge this into glaze, it would absorb the moisture or water into itself, adhering the chemicals on the surface. And all the glaze is a number of different chemicals in suspension with water. And we have a calculation whereby the different chemicals that we use will melt at different temperatures. We can have some glazes melting as low as cone 04, which would be about 1850 degrees Fahrenheit. Or we could have glazes melting at cone 10, which is about 2350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's very, very hot. So once it's been fired to the cone 10 stage, we have a pot that is vitreous, or it'll hold water. And it's very durable. It's called stoneware. Okay, well, let's go outside and take a look at some of the kilns that we use for firing. So this kiln can be used for either bisque firing. This one here, when it becomes green, when it becomes to the point where you can fire it, we need to bring the kiln up slowly because there will be some moisture in the clay, and if it was brought up too fast, it would explode. So we have to bring this pot up real slow, probably a couple days, before we reach this temperature, which is around 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. So, but this is the kiln that we use. This one has 6 burners, 3 in the front, 3 in the back, and I would say it's probably about a 25 cubic foot interior. So this is one of the kilns that we use, and there's another one that we can show you. This is called a California kiln. It has 3 burners underneath, and we're just about ready to fire a pot now. But this is about maybe a 15 cubic foot kiln, and we're just about getting ready to fire this one. The sculpture inside is at that greenware stage. We'll take that up to about 1600 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to spend time with you and maybe give you a better understanding of how it works with making pottery and firing kilns.